I am 87 years old, and this spring I finally stopped telling people 5 things about my own life. 5. I counted them out on the porch steps with my coffee going cold, and it took the better part of a morning, because every one of them had a price on it. Every one of them cost me something before I learned. When I finished, I did not feel ashamed, and I did not feel proud. I felt honest. Maybe for the first time in years, I am not a secretive man. I have spent my life saying too much to too many people, and paying for it later in ways I never connected until I was old. Come sit closer to the fire. Turn your chair so the wind is off your neck and give me a few minutes. I'm not telling you to lie. I'm not telling you to hold something back out of spite, or to keep a person guessing so you can feel important. That is a small game and I have no use for it. I'm telling you something quieter. After 65, a life gets thin in certain places, and the things you say out loud stop staying yours. 5 things. I will give you all 5, and what each one cost me before I learned to let it stay mine. My grandmother said it to me more times than I can count, because I was a boy who could not keep anything behind his teeth. She would lay her hand flat on the table and say, "A closed mouth and a closed heart are 2 different animals, and only one of them bites." She meant a man can keep his own business and still open his door to whoever knocks. She meant the quiet part of a life is not the cold part. A closed heart turns away from people. A closed mouth simply knows what belongs on the table and what belongs in the drawer. I did not understand her for 60 years. I thought telling everything was the same as loving everybody. I thought a man with nothing held back was a man with nothing wrong. It took me until 87 to learn the difference and 5 hard lessons to teach me. So here is the first confession. I stopped telling people what I have put by, and what this land would fetch if anybody ever sold it. I used to say the number out loud like it was weather. I said it at the feed store one October, to a man I had known 30 years. I was not bragging. I was just talking, the way you talk. By Christmas, I had a nephew with a business idea, a roofer who quoted me a price he did not quote my neighbor, and a cousin who started calling on Sundays after 11 years of nothing at all. None of them were bad people. That is what took me so long to understand. The number just changed the way they saw me, and once a number is out in the air, you cannot pull it back down. The old one said the creek runs quietest where it is deepest. The shallow water is the loud water. Before the second confession, let me set one small thing down beside you. I gathered the teachings I was raised on into a book called The Native Way. It is the grandmother sayings, the winter stories, the things I would tell you if you were on my porch with the sun going down. The link is in the description if you want it. And if you do not want it, that is fine too. No pressure at all from me. I am here either way, and I will be here tomorrow either way, whether you ever open the first page or not. That is all I will say about it. I did not come here to sell an old man's paper to anybody, and I would think no less of you for never looking at it. I came here to tell you the truth about 5 things and what each one of them cost me before I learned. So, the second confession. The second confession is the hardest one to say plainly, so I will say it plainly. I stopped telling people what my doctor said to me last spring. I am not going to tell you what he said. That is the whole of the confession. And I will give you no advice about your own body, because I have none to give and no standing to give it. That belongs between you and the people trained for it. What I will tell you is what happened the last time I did talk. Years back I had a bad stretch and I told everybody. I told it at the post office. I told it on the telephone. I told it to a woman in line at the bank who had asked me nothing. And for 2 years after that, I was not an old man anymore. I was a condition. People began asking how I was feeling in a voice they saved for the dying. They stopped asking me to help move anything heavy. Worse than that, they stopped bringing me their own troubles, because you do not carry your troubles to a sick man, and being trusted with other people's troubles was most of what I had left. I lost my place among them, and I lost it by talking. Now there was a fellow I knew named Samuel, and Samuel went too far the other way. Samuel told nobody anything ever, about anything, and he was so complete about it that when the day came that he needed a ride into town, there was not one soul who felt they had the standing to offer him one. That is the other ditch, and it is just as deep. A tree can carry rot no one sees from the road, and that is fine. That is the tree's own business. But a tree that has never let anybody close enough to lean a ladder against it will come down alone in the night. So, I told one person. One. My daughter knows, and she knows all of it. Not the post office, not the church steps, not the man at the feed store. One person who has the right to know, and the rest of it stays in the drawer where my grandmother said it belonged. The third confession. I stopped telling people who gets what when I am gone. I will not tell you how to arrange your own affairs. I am no lawyer, and I have no business standing between you and whoever helps you with such things. What I can tell you is what I watched happen to Walter. Walter was a careful man, and he thought he was being kind. He sat his 3 children down one November evening and laid it all out. Every acre, every account, who got which and why. He wanted no surprises after. He wanted peace in his house. He got 9 years of arithmetic instead. From that evening on, his children did not come to visit Walter. They came to visit their inheritance. The oldest began mentioning the condition of the barn every time he pulled in the drive. The youngest went quiet in a way that never came back. And Walter, who had only wanted to be fair, spent his last 10 years being appraised instead of loved. He told me once, close to the end, that he could no longer tell whether his son was rubbing his shoulders or checking how much of him was left. And here is the part that finished me. The last spring he was alive, Walter stopped mentioning that his knees hurt. He would not say a word about it. He told me he was afraid that if he sounded weak at the table, somebody would start doing sums in their head before he was even out of the room. That is what it does. It does not only take your peace, it takes your ordinary complaints away from you, and an old man ought to be allowed his ordinary complaints. My grandmother kept her seed pouch closed until planting day. Not because she distrusted her own kitchen, and not because she was hiding anything from anyone under that roof, because a seed that gets handled all winter long by everybody who is curious about it does not come up in the spring. So my papers are done. They are where they need to be, with the person they need to be with, and on the day it matters, everything will be plain. Until that day, nobody at my table on a Sunday afternoon is doing arithmetic while they pass the potatoes. The fourth confession is the one I am least proud of. I stopped telling people what my son Eli did the winter I needed him. There was a winter. I will not walk you through all of it. It was cold, I was down, and the telephone did not ring the way I had believed a son's telephone ought to ring. And I told people. My word, I told people. I told it at the diner, and I told it after service, and I told it to a woman selling eggs off her tailgate who had never once met him. I made it into a good story because I was hurt, and a hurt man will make anything into a story if the story buys him a little sympathy. Here is what I never once stopped to think about. Eli was 44 that winter, and he was drowning in something he had not told me about and could not tell me about. And my story got to town ahead of him everywhere he went. People who had known that boy since he was 7 years old started looking at him a certain way in the checkout line. He could feel it on his back, and he did not know where it was coming from. It was coming from me. I had built a case against my own son in a courtroom he was never invited into. We are all right now, he and I. We took our time about it, and we got there. But I could never go back and lift those words out of those people's heads, and I never will. My grandfather used to say that a fire banked low survives the night, and the man who keeps flinging the coals apart to show everybody how bright he can burn wakes up cold in the morning. What is between me and my son is a fire I keep banked now. It is warm. It is simply not on display. And the fifth confession. I stop telling people what I still mean to do before I am finished. I am 87, and I am not done. There are 3 things I intend to do yet, and I will not name them here, and I want you to hear why that is not vanity in an old man. Every single time I named one out loud, somebody helped me kill it. Not on purpose. They never do it on purpose. They said, "At your age?" They said, "Be careful now." They said, "Well, that sounds like a lot," in that particular voice, and I would go to bed with the thing a little smaller than it had been at breakfast. A plan spoken too early is a plan handed over to a committee that never voted for it. There was a woman my people called Grandmother Weaver, and she was already old when I was young. Nobody ever saw her work half finished. She would not show you the pattern until it was a blanket in her lap. She said the ones who tell you what they are making are asking permission for it, and she had never in her life asked permission. The bird does not announce the nest. It carries one piece of grass at a time and lets you find out about it in the spring. So I am carrying my grass. If I finish, you will see the nest. If I do not finish, then it was mine anyway. And I had the whole pleasure of it right up to the end, without one living soul telling me I was too old to try. And I will tell you what came back to me when I stopped announcing things. My mornings got interesting again. I would wake up with something in my hands that belonged only to me, unweighed, unmeasured, not yet ruined by anybody's good intentions. That is a young man's feeling, and I did not expect to get it back at 87. Now I want to say something careful because I know how a list like this can land on a person. Naming these 5 was not the same as hating myself for them. I did not sit on those steps and decide I had been a fool for 87 years. A man who talks too much is not a bad man. He is usually a lonely one, or a proud one, or just a man raised in a house where the talking never stopped, who never learned there was another way to be in a room. That is a habit. A habit is a thing I can watch. It is not a thing I am. And I want to be plain about the other side of it, because I would hate for you to carry the wrong lesson home from my porch. I did not get quiet. I got particular. I still tell my daughter everything that matters. I still sit 2 hours with a neighbor over 1 cup of coffee. My door has not closed, and my table has not gotten any smaller. And there's not one person in my life who gets less of my warmth than they got before. What changed is that I stopped handing pieces of my life to people who were only ever going to weigh them. There is a difference between a drawer and a locked door, and I have a drawer. A closed mouth is not a closed heart. My grandmother was right, and it took me all this time and 5 hard lessons to prove her right. So let me gather this up for you now, the way my grandmother gathered the ends of her shawl before she stepped out into the cold. 5 things. What I have put by, and what this land is worth. What the doctor said to me last spring, who gets what when I am gone. What my son did the winter I needed him. And what I still mean to do before I am finished. Now I am going to turn it around and set it in your lap, and you can answer me in your own kitchen where nobody is listening. Who knows your number? Did you tell them, or did they earn it? When somebody asks how you are, do you hand them a report on your body, or do you hand them your day? Have you laid your affairs out on a dinner table and called it kindness? Are you carrying a story about somebody in your own family that you have told more times than you have told them? And is there something you still mean to do that a room full of people has already talked you out of? You do not have to answer me. I am not there in your kitchen, and I would not ask it of you out loud. Answer yourself. That one is harder, and it is the only one that changes anything. I know what some of you are thinking, because I thought it too, sitting out there with the cold coffee in my hand. Is it too late for me? I am 87. I do not know what your years will hand you, and I will not promise you a thing. But I will tell you what age has not taken from me. I can still notice. I noticed a habit I had carried since I was a young man, and I was able to make one ordinary choice about it, one time, on one afternoon, with one thing I did not say. That much is still yours. The noticing and the one choice. Nobody has ever been too old for those two. I would like to hear from you now. Of these five, which number sat down closest to home for you? The first, the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth? Put it in the comments and tell me a little about it, because I read them, all of them. And there are nights when the comments are the best company an old man has. Then come back and sit with me again tomorrow. The chair by this fire is yours, and I will keep it warm. Go easy on yourself today. You have carried enough.